Welcome to Greyhound Gym. It looks a little bit different than it did 30 years ago, doesn't it? We've had fun kind of reminiscing about how it looked then. Of course, we've even dated back to the days when that was the stage and that was outside to the auxiliary gym. But it means a lot to me that you're here today. And what I want to do is just basically, it's a 30th anniversary of our 1990 team. And, you know, we've been together for several reunions. We had one 10 years after we got second in state. And then, of course, we got together in 2008 over there in the cafeteria. And then got together again in 2013 when they inducted us into the Boerne ISD Athletic Hall of Honor. And then we're here again today. And, you know, there's that 30 for 30 video with Jim Valvano. And what started having me think about this was I love that one. And of course, one of the guards is driving to somebody's funeral. And then they met together at one of the restaurants that they liked. And what did they talk about? They said, hey, we need to always get together and stay connected. So years from now, we're not just getting together at each other's funerals. And then it really touched home with me just a little over a month ago. Ray Hobgood passed away. And Ray was graduated in 1988, and he was a senior when the 90 class, when Jose and Shane and Chris and Chad were sophomores. And I mean, it hit us hard, you know, because he was on the first varsity team when I came here in 1986. And Ray and I, you know, kept a good relationship through the years. He would call when one of the first calls I got the night we beat Alamo Heights to go to the state tournament was Ray Hobgood. Todd Eason and Ray Hobgood called me, and you can imagine they called very late. And then Ray called again in 2008, and then when we won our 800th game, Ray called again. And so, of course, I reached out to Steve Jackson and Todd Eason and Jeb Hensley. And I said, we got to get together with 90. Because of all the COVID, we weren't able to do what we'd normally want to do. And of course, this means a lot more to me because we really get to stay and visit. A lot of times when they introduce you at halftime of a game, when you bring back a team, well, you know, you get to visit a little bit before they bring you in halftime, and they tell you that this is the state finalist team of 1990, and they're in the BISD Hall of Honor, and then we all go our way. So today what I want to do is talk about that year, and there's no accident that 59 to 55 is on the scoreboard in front of us and behind us, because that's what makes this team so special. Is one of the greatest in the 100-year history of Texas basketball. When they talk about the 100 best games, there's no doubt the state semifinal 4A of 1990 when Boerne defeated Port Arthur Lincoln 59 to 55 will always be on the list. And so just kind of want to go around and talk about, of course, your memories of those years, and then what you're doing now. And then I want us to to have fun and just do like we've been doing before we got here and got in the chairs. But I'll start off with the freshman coach that made all this happen. And of course, Coach McConaughey and I came together with Coach John Wattsmouth. And then he was here about 2 months, and then they hired Jack Moss. And we were glad that he kept us. And so he was, Bruce was the head baseball coach, DB coach on the football team, and freshman basketball. And I was the offensive coordinator, and I say that in jest. I was up on the press box, and Coach Moss always asked me, all you do is tell me who made the tackle. And then he called the play off who made the tackle. And so I liked telling people I was offensive coordinator and I was a head basketball coach. But Bruce, thanks for being here, and just kind of talk about your memories as being the class of 1990s freshman basketball coach. And then, of course, you were there all 4 years when we developed, and then, of course, when we were the state finalists and beat Port Arthur Lincoln.
No, I want to thank Stan for letting me be a part of it, because I was really a small part of the whole package. But I was there all 4 years and supported these guys. And coming in here, I think memories just flood back to me. So many that I get confused with all the memories. But I think there's a couple I'll bring up. First thing, the guys that were on that freshman team, a bunch of great guys. It was a real pleasure to be around them. They were funny. They was entertaining. We had good practices. It was just a great group of guys, and really entertaining. So many stories, but I think one of the better stories was, and I'm presently a basketball coach at Central Catholic, and I'm kind of a defensive-minded coach, and so in an early district game, we were playing Kerrville-Tivy, and that first year, and went up there to Kerrville and got beat pretty bad. I think I let Stan probably share how many points we lost by, but we lost quite a bit. And we got on the bus, and one of their teammates, the freshman player, had scored a bunch of points against Kerrville, but we had lost. It had been a good game, but we had lost also. And so my comment when we got on the bus was, did you see Shane Carpenter's charge? Shane had taken a charge right over here. I told Stan, I said, yeah, but did you see Shane Carpenter's charge? And I saw a side of Stan I hadn't seen in a while. He kind of got upset with me. And charge? We're concerned about a charge? We just got beat. We got a freshman that scored 30 points, and you're concerned about a charge? You're excited about a charge? I said, well, okay. I just fired the bus up and drove it home.
I love that story, and I'm glad you joined that. It's because the varsity, we were in tough shape because, of course, your brother Joe was on the varsity, and Joseph, and we had got beat. We were struggling. That first year, we were 11-20, and so we're 11-20. Dave Clark was the JV coach, and JV wasn't much better. And then the freshman team won 2 games. Y'all won 2 games. And so I'm just like Bruce said, I get on the bus, I'm wanting some good news because we just got beat by Kerrville 73-33. So he goes, and of course Shivers, David had scored, I think, in that game 35 points. And so I get on the bus, and I knew Coach McConaughey was defensive minded because I go, well, tell me about it. He said, oh, I tell you what, you ought to have seen it. Shane Carpenter, he stuck it up there and he took a charge. And I go, well, what about Shivers scoring 35 points? Yeah. You ought to have seen Carpenter. And I went, Coach, I said, we just got beat 75-35, and our report is a guy taking a charge. And so we go back to that, and that's exactly how it happened. And so it was a lot of fun. That was a fun group. And then, what are your memories about that freshman year? Jose and of course Shane.
Ingram with the flooded locker room.
Flooded locker rooms.
Standing on
Playing on
benches or
carpet.
buckets or whatever,
Yeah.
so we didn't get our shoes and socks wet. We had our shoes and socks off, and then we went outside and put our shoes and socks on to go play.
Yeah, on the carpet floor.
On a carpet
Yeah.
floor.
Carpet floor.
Can you imagine? They had the varsity gym was carpet floor.
Smelling that afterwards.
But I love that's part of our story, because the team that why we're here, 28-8, state finalists. It was at the time the best team in Boerne's history, and to tell that the freshman team, when these guys were freshmen, they won 2 games. And there's more to the story, but then Coach was also the head baseball coach. And so then I took off, I guess it was probably about the last 3 weeks, no more than the last 3 weeks. And so I was the freshman coach. I had coached the freshman team. Well, I was the freshman coach in the games. Coach McConaughey continued to have the practices. But that goes to show if a freshman team doesn't have success, that doesn't mean 3 years later they can't play for a state championship. Carl, I want to go to you now and just talk about your role on the 1990 team. And of course, it was a very important one. When I look through the old tapes, of course, I'm proud of you at the state semifinal game and of course, other games. Of course, I remember you going on the Snowbird on the state semifinal.
Yeah, why were you down on the other end by yourself?
He told me to do that sometimes too, and I was all embarrassed.
Oh, you gotta tell that story.
No, what it was, Carl, in your defense, we were breaking the press, and your job was to go down and be by the basket. And then, of course, everybody was up, and then Dave, hit you. And I mean, you is pretty. And that's why you were such a good receiver. You caught it, and I just knew. I said, Carl is going to bring it down. He's going to bring the house down. Do you remember what play I'm talking about?
Exactly
In
what
the
you're
state
talking
semifinal?
I remember exactly what you yelled at me. Too.
Yeah, I said, well, gosh, I'm sorry, Carl. I just said, please make it, I think. But anyway.
You screamed from the other side of the gym, don't dunk it.
That is exactly what I said, because he was our best dunker. And I thought,
The only dunker.
and Jose's
Except
right.
for
He
Coach
was
McConaughey.
our only dunker besides the freshman basketball coach.
Yeah.
And but anyway, go ahead, Carl.
I was obedient. I went up to dunk it, and I heard the yell. I turned it over and rolled it.
And we went up 4, and
Yep.
and so, but Carl also played football, and he was a quarterback, and then later became a receiver. And Carl and I's great memories are football practice, and then also, the guys that were juniors on that team, we went on and had a good year the next year too. We got second in district, and I have fond memories of that next year too, where we kept it going, and then of course that streak continued. But just want to talk about what you're doing now, Carl, and then just a few other things about 1990.
I'll tell you what, I'll go back to the day before the semifinal game.
Okay.
I believe Chad and I were roommates.
Yep.
Okay.
At the La Quinta.
La Quinta.
In downtown Austin.
Yeah, I'm
They
sorry
stuck
about that.
They stuck us in the same hotel as Port Arthur Lincoln.
They sure
Stuck
did.
in the elevator with Port Arthur
We
Lincoln
did.
after we beat them.
Yep.
Yep,
Yeah, I
remember that.
And we were up till about 2 or 3 in the morning, not because we chose to be, but because they were beating on our walls.
Beating on a wall,
Screaming
and then
and
next
yelling
door
at
to
See,
us.
I see, 30 years later, I'm still learning things.
Hey, and Coach Ferguson driving us an extra time down 6th Street,
Oh my
and his Suburban went back to the hotel, and he thought we were lost in Austin.
Yeah.
And then when we pulled into the,
Oh,
remember
man,
we
he
pulled
had-
into the
Oh,
parking
I
lot,
saw
he's
that.
sitting
He
there,
had a-
where you? Coach Ferguson's like, we had a blast.
You started yelling at us, and we were just like, "It's Coach's fault. Coach's fault." We ran into the hotel. We were gone.
He was the coach at that moment.
He was.
It's his fault,
It
sir.
was,
We didn't
it
say
was his fault. And I remember that because I was going, I didn't think he's ever coming back. So I had all kinds of, well, I thought, well,
Calling the law.
did they have a wreck or something? Because he was just supposed to go and come back. And it probably was only 30 minutes, but it seemed like an hour plus.
We had shivers in our Suburban too, though.
Yeah.
So I mean, that had
Well,
something.
I'm glad. Well, I had Chad, so we
Yep, there we go.
we were fine.
Yep.
But anyway, I just what else on that, Carl?
I just remember it was silent the next morning.
Yes,
It
it
was.
was.
They
It was
didn't
very
say a
silent.
word.
They
They
didn't
were
say one
humble.
word.
Yeah.
That was so awesome.
They were humble.
And of course, there was nobody picking us that night, for that night. And we had the late game. And
Yeah,
of course, we started it was supposed to start at 8:30, but it didn't start till close to 9. And of course, we all have great memories of that, how we started. And then, of course, we're up at half. And, we'd been up at half before that year. So we knew there was a lot of basketball to still be played. But anyway, Greg, I do want you to talk about your memories that year, and then also just about basketball in general, your senior year too. And of course, why I'm proud of you is you're an educator. And of course, just all that we went through and what you've done makes you real important to me because what you've done since that day 30 years ago. Because of course, your brother Johnny was on '93 team that won 3 playoff games and had a real good season. But and then your mother, we're going over the pictures. I would be. I'd have to mention her because she was one of our biggest fans. That night, because being a Boerne graduate, us winning that night, we were all excited, but Joan Wright got more excited than anybody, and she was. And so, my memories when I flood through with you, of course, are, your freshman year. You were going to be in band, and I worked with the band, so you would continue to play basketball in band. And that was my first deal cutting with the band director, so that you would play basketball. And then, of course, the part of this team that means a lot to me. And then your senior year, and then just talk about what you're doing now.
Sure, absolutely. Well, first of all, you mentioned I'm an educator, and a big part of that, I think, is because of your influence. There's a handful of people that have been really big inspirations in my life, and you're in that handful. So you played a big part. Yeah, I have great memories of that team. I love talking to these guys because there's things that I had forgotten about, and just hearing it it brings a smile to my face. But realistically, let's be honest here. I was not one of the most important people on that team, so I was down towards the end of the bench. What I do remember is, if it wasn't for that year, I don't think my senior year would have been as good as it was. One of the best memories I have, whenever I really understood what I needed to do, I had a tough day at practice. Of course, I'm one of the taller guys. I had to cover David Chivers a lot. Well, I don't have near,
that, by the way.
Yeah, I don't have near the talent. So I just did my best to stay in his way, hoping that he wouldn't score 100 on me in practice. He had gotten on me a couple times about not playing good enough defense on him. And so my head was hanging. I walked out of the gym that day after practice, head hanging, and I remember David coming up to me and said, "Greg, never take anything personal." He said, "That stays on the court." He said, "We're all trying to get better in there." And then he walked off. And after that, I was like, you know what? He's right. And so I didn't hang my head after that. I understood that he's trying to help me out, so I need to do what I can to get better. And so that's why I really tried to work hard to become better, and had a decent senior year, I think.
Yes, you did.
We got to go to the playoffs, have a little success, a
we did.
lot of fun. But man, I tell you what, just being along for the ride. They're talking about the hotel in Austin, and getting stuck on the elevator. Not only stuck, I remember it started actually going down because we had too many people on the elevator. Remember that?
Yep.
And so we start prying the doors open, and Jose's first one crawling off. And I mean, it was so much fun. It was such a whirlwind. It happened so fast. But this is what I love. You hear the stories, you're like, oh yeah, that did happen. I'd forgotten about that. I remember going to the spaghetti warehouse to eat our meal on our off day.
That's right, we did.
And we're all sitting in there eating and, you know, just having a good time talking. And there were several people that came up to us and said, hey, we saw y'all play. Y'all were fantastic. We're rooting for y'all. You know, that kind of thing. It was just, you start realizing, oh, wow, this is kind of a big deal, isn't it? So, no, I just loved every minute of it. I just feel blessed that I was along for the ride. Because like I said, I was not the most important person. I was probably more of like a tackling dummy in practice, but I enjoyed every minute of it.
And you and I were all that was left from our class.
That's
We were
right.
True.
You know,
That's right.
Chris said something on the text message this morning. I said, I don't know how this is going to be without a Shivers. It's like, you know, Michael Jordan not showing up for a Bulls reunion, you know. And Chris said, us role players are going to have to pick up the slack. And I thought that's what y'all are talking about, role players, you
No,
know.
and that's what we were. I mean, we had one star. We had a really good player who was, you know, emerging star in Robbie, and the rest of us were fundamentally sound role players. I mean, we knew our role.
Amen. Well, that's good. And Greg, I like what you said about what David told you that day, and I'm glad he said that. I would have thought maybe he'd got onto you for playing good defense on him. So it must have. So I'm kind of going, you know what? I appreciate you telling me that. You know, I feel good that he encouraged you. I thought you were going to tell me. He said, "You ever guard me that hard again?" And so I'm glad he had a good moment that deal.
He did.
So,
and I still remember it to this day, so it shows you it was impactful.
yeah, good. Well, Chad, you know, of course, when you come in and I think about you from the beginning, and you know that injury, your junior year, was huge, and then it means a lot to me because what you overcome, and then also about how fortunate we were that accident wasn't worse. And I mean, that was a huge injury. And but what you did beginning that junior year, and then what you became your senior year, are the pieces that brought this together. Because without Chad, we wouldn't be here today. And but just the beginning of how important his role was, and then also, you know, practices, guys. You know, a lot of times people always say, well, good teams, they get along. I always tell people, you didn't come to practices with 1990. It wasn't. We weren't holding hands and singing Kumbaya at practice. And then each team has to go through at least 3 struggles during the year. And we went through more than 3, but you know, we had a couple people quit. But I love thinking about practice because Chad was real good he was one of the challenges for David, and he competed and made him compete. And everybody needs checks and balances, and Chad was one of them. But Chad, it's your turn now I want you to just kind of talk about your memories of your junior and then, of course, senior year. I'm forever grateful for you the first half of Port Arthur Lincoln. I know Chad, I don't know what he was thinking, but I know what I was thinking when David gets his 4th foul. And, of course, I kept him in. He should have taken him out the 3rd, but I was worried about their pressure. And
No, you shouldn't have taken him out.
And
Coach. You did good. Yeah.
Okay.
We told you not to take him out.
thank you. And I thought about taking him out, but I didn't think about it long. And then he got his 4th, and thank goodness Chad Chase took over. And I know Chad was going, "Oh, good! Finally, I get to shoot the ball." And
I remember that timeout because there was fire in your eyes. You're like, hey, this is it. This is my moment.
this is Chad.
And you were a
Chase's
man
moment.
possessed that whole first half, and you We're like, who is this guy?
Who is that guy? Well, finally we released him.
You were
And
unreal.
but anyway, Chad, I want you to, kind of talk about your memories and and then of course what you're doing now.
Well, we were talking about memories, and I remember with Coach McConaughey our freshman year how tough practices were, and as most freshman teams, we get the worst practice times, and
Yes.
I remember getting up at 5:30 in the morning and walking in here and it being freezing cold.
Oh yeah.
Coach McConaughey going, "All right, boys, strap them up. It's time to run." And then I used to have this really bad habit of laughing when I'd get nervous,
Yeah, I'm sorry.
or I'd
Chad.
get uptight.
You didn't like that very much.
I'm
And
sorry.
coach couldn't stand
I'm
that.
sorry.
I wasn't even doing it on purpose. It just happened. And I remember this one practice coach, he lit me up, but it changed my perspective. That was the good news behind it. But it changed my perspective of what I needed to do and how I needed to focus. But that was a fond memory.
Was that the one you're up against the wall back there?
It might have
Is that-
been. I actually think it was in the
There's a few
auxiliary
of
gym.
those.
Actually,
Oh,
the one
okay.
I remember.
The rubber
The one
gym,
I remember
okay.
is the rubber gym. When we were talking about the rubber gym, I was thinking, yeah, that's the time Coach got on me for laughing.
Chad looked like he was. I mean, guys, he was the only one that looked like an athlete besides Carl.
Yep. And Coach McConaughey.
And Coach and we had two guys that looked like athletes. And every time his defense mechanism was, it's funny you bring that up, was laughing. And I was going, he can't do that. And well, I'm glad that you learned something from it. And
I did.
but I was going because I knew Chad was our only chance, because I mean he could have started on defense and football, offense and football, and we were just fortunate that we had him in basketball. Because with Chris and Shane and Jose, they were about as athletic as a camel, and
Still.
and so
Took a charge.
he took a charge. Yeah, but Shane took a charge. Oh yeah, that
I'm gonna have
matters.
to pay him later. Or
Yeah,
something.
I know. He took a charge, and but yeah, go ahead, Chad.
I actually was laughing with what Greg said about David, because what you just said, which is I wouldn't have expected him to say that, because he got on. He used to ride me hard because I'd actually play him hard in practices, and he used to get so aggravated with me.
Oh yeah.
But I loved that time. It was a formative time in my life. It was wonderful memories. I had forgotten about what Carl brought up with the 2 a.m. wake up call from the Port Arthur team, because they were banging on that wall. I remember that. Now that he said it, it just I had kind of forgotten about it. But man, that was a special time, and I've actually taken my boys to multiple Longhorn games over the years, and every time I walk in the Frank Irwin Center, it's just like stepping back in time. It's a time capsule.
I think
Well, that
people
means a
realize how
lot.
big that was.
Well, that was huge for us.
So many people
Broke the
there.
attendance record.
We,
so many
we
people
did
there.
break the attendance
we still
record,
have it.
and it's still on the list. Well, we know that Chad, there was a lot of things or times, but remember the Pleasanton Poteet tournament?
Oh my
Can I
God.
tell that? Some of that?
Here's what I'll do. I'll
was
start it,
terrible.
and I'll let you take it over. But I do want to start it that we had lost to Pleasanton the first game of the year. We lose to Pleasanton in the championship of the Poteet tournament.
Yep.
And Chad has no idea how much an impact
Yep.
what he did
Robbie.
that started it. He and Robbie, but mainly Chad, because Robbie was still trying to find himself, in a role. And then I'm going to let you go
Yep.
with it, okay?
David wins MVP of the tournament, even though we lost in the championship game. I don't know if I should say this, but he disposed of his MVP trophy in the trash can in the locker room. And me and Chris and Dave Hose, we were kind of the cut up part, and Chad and Robbie were kind of the more put together glue
Yeah,
situation.
because I yelled at him
Yep.
for laughing his freshman
Yep.
year. Okay, go ahead.
And so when Shivers throws the old MVP trophy in the trash and says whatever usual Dave Shivers comments, And we kind of thought we rode with Dave, but you could look at Chris and look at Chad and Robbie, and they were like, "No, that's not the way it should be." And we got on the bus, and we were coming back, and Poteet was a long ways from Boerne, and Chad took it upon himself to tell us how none of that was the way it should be, and how we should be more of a unified team, and how we should be more on the team together instead of these 4 guys over here, these 3 guys over here. And to get through to Dave was tough sometimes, but he got through to him that day. And Robbie spoke up, and Chad spoke up, and I think it was the turning point that made us realize that we got a lot of talent here, and we have a lot of ability, and this team can go places if we do it the right way.
And that's why each of you are so special to me, because each of you have a role, but that role, someone stepping up that day and going, no, we're going to be a team, and no longer are we going to get beat by Pleasanton and for the second time of the year. And then, guys, you do know we got going after that. We came home and beat Lockhart bad. We go to Uvalde. We go to Uvalde and win on last second shot. Go back to Lockhart and win in the end. And so we grew up that Friday before we left for Christmas break. And Chad, I always thank you for that. And I hope you held us accountable, and we appreciate it. And so, Jose, I want you to talk about your role. And of course, you were the 6th man. You and
well, yeah.
Sometimes.
I think for lack of anybody else being available.
I
and
knew
I had
you
5
would
fouls.
disappoint me.
I gave you whatever I had.
I want you to talk about it.
We were talking about this. Shane and I were talking about this a little bit before I came in, before we walked in here. But you just looking at me. In my mind, I was going to be a basketball player, no matter what. You guys remember the 9-footers?
Oh man!
I used to. My dad was. You're going to be a baseball player. It's what you're good at. It's what you and I could not wait to get the basketball and go out there. But I think one of the things that we forgot to mention is we grew up together. We were
in this gym. Me, Shivers, and Jose.
I'm
just going to say it. We were the 3 best players in the 9-year-old, 10-year-old, and we were all 3 on different teams. But final score would be like 28-5, and I would score 26 of them, or Jose would score 26 of them, or Dave would score all 28 of them, whichever. But 9 years old, right here.
But that's how we grew up.
Started.
We knew our families. We were tough. Things weren't, things weren't great back then for all of us, and we all confided in each other. I think the friendship started early with some of us. I got
kindergarten.
Close, but with Chad and I got close in high school, and that friendship with all of you just meant so much. And I think when you come together as a group and you achieve something like that, having known where you come from, and I had no business on the basketball court, a lot of us did, and I think Shane and I would be the first ones to tell you that we shouldn't have been on that team. We took care of David. We made sure that David got to practices, got to eat, got fed, and I had a truck, and Shane drove, so we got him to practice, we got him to games, and sometimes we literally got him to games. We got him out of bed, he'd still be in bed, and we would have to get him here. But
you knew we were going to get him here.
We were going to get him here, and
I was going to wait till he got here.
We knew that much. We knew that much, but. I think that's the biggest thing that I take away from it. You have your faith and you have your family, but you have your friends and the people you grow up with. And no matter what we're all doing now in our professions, I think we all have that Coach Leach in us that instilled that hard work, that dedication, the leadership, and passing that on to our kids and anybody that I come in contact with. It's just fantastic. Yes, it was amazing to play in front of a full gym. When you guys remember walking in here, and Shane said our parents were the only ones watching us. Mm-hmm. So walking into something like the Frank Irwin Center and having that many people there, some of us I think David was the first one sick in the locker room throwing up. He was so nervous.
Yeah.
That was a big deal for us. Some of us hadn't been, myself, had never been out of the small town Boerne into, big towns. But we were so close. And that's what I remember the most. And I think being with this group, coaches, played a little baseball with that man over there, just brought us all together. And that's what I'm most proud of. I still am. And there's probably not I'll just say one last thing, but there's probably not a month, a year, 6 months or whatever that somebody and this is a big area now, somebody will come up and say, wait a minute, weren't you on that team? And they still mention it now, 30 years later. And they still bring it up. And it's, of course, it's one of the biggest things that I'm proud of. So it means a lot to me.
Yeah, special.
Excellent.
Jose, thank you. We talk about y'all's role, and then when Bo asked me to put people in chairs, well, I wanted them right here because my memory, of course, I know Coach Ferguson was here, and because of my relationship with Jose and Shane, I would, of course, y'all don't know about this because y'all were playing 32 minutes, but I would always turn over there and go, because they were basically the David whisperer. And I would go, well, do I get him? Do I take him out? Do we go? And they would go, no, leave him in. And so when he got that fourth foul, we did a quick review. So were we up? We
You
down?
said you put your knee, bent down on your knees, and you were sitting in front of us, and you were like, dog, we're sitting at the state semifinal game, and Shivers has 4 fouls in the second quarter. What do you think's going to happen? I said, loss. And Jose goes, Jose looked at me and he goes, loss.
That's exactly what it
he goes,
is.
he goes, do I take him out? And we said, not here, coach. You can't take him out here. You're in the state semifinal game. And he goes, all right, I'll leave him in.
Let it ride.
Oh, and then he got that fourth foul, and we did take him out with 4 fouls.
3 fouls. Sorry, you came over with 3
I came
fouls.
at 3, and then the fourth, I didn't ask for anybody's opinion. He was out, and so and thank goodness we did. But I just loved throughout that season. I'd talk to Coach Ferguson, and then I'd go back and say, okay, what's the committee think?
Yeah.
And I always listened to players, and it started with y'all.
And we even played a little bit sometimes too.
Yes,
Once
you
in a while,
did.
we'd get in there.
Yes.
I remember
Jose
Coach
played in every
would
game.
put you in, and he would meet David at the scorer's table, and they'd have their back and forth and holler and scream, and the next dead ball, he'd automatically get inserted back in, and you knew he was coming for you. So we
I
just,
was about to say the same thing. I don't think David's butt ever hit the seat.
No,
it's
no,
like
it never did.
coach
We were
will bring him
ready.
out, say a few things to him, dead ball, go back in.
We were
We used
ready
to call
though.
that.
oh, you,
Yeah, remember we used to call it. That's what we used to say.
That was
'cause he'd
Jose's
buzz in,
nickname.
And then he'd buzz out.
His nickname was
buzzer.
Well, sometimes you got to go in for Seth.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so that was longer because that was a lot longer. I think he played a bit longer.
And he had better hops. He had better hops than Shane or I. Shane and I were grounded, but Jose could jump.
Well, because Boerne lore, you have to talk about the 9-footers, know, and because that's where these guys all learned how to play, the 9-footers. Of course, it's a building now. It is central office, but the 9-footers.
And you would tell us to stay away from them.
Yeah. Because you didn't want Shivers to get
I
hurt.
don't want to see you out there.
Well, because there was, there was like men out there
Yeah.
playing.
Characters out there.
Yeah. It was quite a group. And then, of course, 9-footers, your shot, that's,
Yeah.
we weren't
worried about
We
that.
weren't worried about the
dunking.
No. Well, Shane, it's your turn, of course. Shane, we have to talk about July, around, I think it was like July the 9th, 1986.
Yeah.
I'm the head basketball coach of Boerne. And so I was coming to open gym. And Carla and I had already closed on a house on Cibolo Crossing.
Yeah.
and she wasn't with
lived
me,
there,
so
too.
I knew that open gym would start at about 5 o'clock, and so I drive up, and now it's your turn. You tell the story a lot better than I
I'll
do.
tell that story, and then I'll go. Well,
Go from there.
David lived right over here in Bentwood, which is where Chris lives now, but it's a neighborhood right adjoining to the school. And we were on our bikes that day for some reason. We didn't. Back then there was no cell phones or no Xboxes, so we just played basketball and drove around. And we were good kids, so we didn't get in trouble, in that kind of trouble anyway. But we were sitting right over here on this sidewalk, and our bikes were laying on the ground, and Coach Leach comes up, and I always remember his car. It was like a white Delta 88 with a leather top on it.
That's it.
And we were standing there, and he walks over and he says, "Y'all tell me where the gym is?" "Yes, sir, we'll show you where the gym." I probably didn't say yes, sir, but I
don't
said,
think
"Yeah,
you did."
we'll show you where the gym is." And that's where it all started.
Yep.
I think. I mean, that was the beginning. I mean, I don't think he knew that Shivers was who Shivers was, and we were just showed him where it was, and that was. We didn't see you again until school started or whatever.
That'd be
I
about
don't
right.
think.
And
So,
then y'all were going to be freshmen.
or your eighth
And
graders.
then you were eighth graders. It was your eighth grade summer. You were going to be freshmen. And then,
Yeah.
of course, I found out about you guys
Yeah.
through talking to Coach McConaughey because he had freshman basketball. And of course, I had a class when he had freshman basketball. So that's how he would tell me. He said, "Oh, there's one guy in there that's not bad." And
Shoots a lot.
So
Shoots a lot.
shoots a lot, yeah. And of course, the best thing that happened to him is that in those days, I wouldn't even have thought about putting a freshman on varsity. You know, nowadays, he'd have probably been playing 32 minutes, and but those days it wasn't even it wasn't even a conversation. And it's funny how things have changed in 30 years. But I know you're my talker, so I know you've got other things besides when
Yeah,
I
I could
showed
talk
up
for-
in '86.
I could talk for hours and hours and hours, and I think to myself sometimes I don't remember what I ate yesterday, but how can I remember everything that happened?
Right.
I mean everything, the words, the sentences, the moments. I went to kindergarten with these two dudes, so I mean I've known them since I was 4.5 years old or whatever. Then remember playing Little League here when we were 9. But then I'm gonna try to hold myself together. I didn't have a huge father figure growing up, and I didn't have any brothers. But now I have father figures and brothers because of this team. So, I mean, me and Dave and Chris were like 3 people that we were together. It seemed like we were together 24/7. Like, it's weird to me that my kids don't spend the night at kids' houses. We always spent the night at each other's house. It seemed like every day, either Sue or Loretta, or not really Sue, but I mean, they just knew that if we were at one of those houses doing something. So, but you know, from the time I met you there till the freshman year, to being on JV with Hose and sophomore and junior year, and then the varsity year. I mean, just the things that you remember. You remember the high points, like Pleasanton, even though that wasn't a good point that day, it was so important to what happened. To you writing, "We're going to the party" on the chalkboard. I mean, how do you not remember that? I mean, that's one of the greatest, that is Hoosiers. That is some kind of movie type deal. But when you got your big win and the thing and everything, I sent you a long text because I couldn't come to your party. And you sent back a text that I think probably is one of the most important things anybody's ever told me. And Coach Leach said, relationships, relationships, relationships. Everything else is just everything else.
Yeah.
And I thought to myself, that is, I mean, these 2 guys were like my dads then. And Shivers and Hose and all these guys, but especially Chris and David, they were my brothers. I didn't have brothers. I had 2 sisters. And my mom worked all the time. So, I mean, this is what we did. I mean, when we talk to our kids now, how are y'all so good? That's all we did. We just played basketball all the time. We were either in the gym or in Shivers' driveway or at the Nines or whatever. That's all we did. We didn't play on phones. We didn't text. We didn't do anything. We just played basketball. But I'm going to say something about the state tournament. I remember sitting in Travis May's locker.
Yeah.
And you were in Courtney, whatever the other off guard for Texas was, and we're sitting in there and we're thinking, what are we doing here? And we have white Hanes t-shirts on that say Greyhound basketball, cursive.
Letters like this big.
Yeah, cursive that I think you had made on
I had a made.
That was the worst
like-
shirt ever.
like on Main Street or something.
Oh,
you know?
I did.
And we
it's
come
where
out-
Pops used to be till they closed. Yeah, go ahead.
And we come out of the locker room, and we're 12 country white guys, and Port Arthur Lincoln comes out with pull-offs, and they're singing, ooh, ah, we like it, remember? And you were in front of me, and you said, we're gonna get killed. And I said,
Well, all of us were looking up. I know, everyone was. And they're all staring at us.
and they're doing their dance, and we're standing there like 12 losers with our white Hanes t-shirts on going, this is gonna be good. But we were there.
That all played into the, to the stage.
But we walked out and we started warming up, and we were sitting in the middle of the gym, Frank Irwin Center. And you see like Sue and Loretta, and they're like this big, and they're like, hey, and they're like a mile away, and we're like, this is unbelievable. I mean, it was unbelievable to us, and we were the,
Well, you looked over, I mean, and I remember you saying, what are we doing here?
what are we doing here?
What are
And
we
then
doing here?
you don't realize how much of an effect it is, but you know, we went to the state tournament for years. You've gone your whole life, you've gone your whole life, you've gone, but we went even before
Right.
we went ourselves. So we always said if there was some way we could ever get to play and people would be watching us. And even when we graduated and went to Tech, we'd be playing like an intramural game, me and Chris. And where are you guys from? From Boerne. First question always. You think it'd be, yeah, I watched y'all in the state championship game. You know Shivers? How many times we say, we know Shivers.
We know Shivers.
More than you could ever imagine. But I mean, even years later, you know, you'd go to school. We were in Lubbock, which was a long ways from here, and people still. But I mean, I remember you fussing at us, and I just remember every part of every practice and every.
Some of those
And-
practices, I think, were what made us as tough as we were. You know, we.
You said stuff now. I mean,
Oh,
maybe I
no.
shouldn't say this.
Hey, I'm still athletic director.
Are we going to do that? Are we going to open that up this morning?
I was wondering if this was coming out.
When was that going to come out?
No, but
I gave you the light version when I said you were tough on me.
And I appreciate that. Yeah.
no, but he would make sure that, I mean, the doors were locked, nobody came in.
No.
But those were the most competitive practices. We probably fought more with each other than we ever did with anybody else. So yeah,
But me and Chris and David, we weren't very good students or stuff, and we had this English class, the last period of the class, and my mom worked in the office, so we did stuff we shouldn't have done in class, and I couldn't even get to the sidewalk, and my mom would come out and say, "Why do you and Chris and Dave keep doing that stuff?" I said, "How did you find out?" It's like 30, and then we'd be done with practice, and you'd say, "You three guys stay." And we'd say, "Oh, no, we know."
Yep.
What we did, but I mean, it was just the memories of, I lived out on the highway, and y'all dropped me off on the way home from
sure
road
did.
games.
I remember that.
And then making sure that like my dad, y'all made sure that I got home, and y'all weren't even that much older than we were back then. I mean, y'all were young too. But I mean, this is, if you talk about memories, you talk about your kids and your wives and your families and stuff. This was our family. I mean, for a while, and it was, I don't think it just because we went to the state championship game that it was special, because it was special either way. And I mean, we had this dysfunctional type deal, but at the end of the day, we would have fought for each other tooth and nail every day. But I mean, it was the funnest time that you could ever imagine. I mean, I don't think we could have had any better memories of our high school career or our senior year. Played basketball from like October the 1st to like March the 1st,
Yeah,
didn't
we
we?
did.
Long, long roll.
I appreciate that, but I have to talk about, Pleasanton, for some reason, comes up a lot, because our first loss was Pleasanton. And then when I think the turning point of the
This is
season
gonna
was
be
after we
Cal
lost
Allen.
to Pleasanton. And then of, I agreed to play Cal Allen
At
at
Pleasanton.
because we couldn't find a place. And I remember Dave, when I told him that we were playing at Pleasant, he goes, "Oh my, that place is dark." Remember, he said there's no lights. And I just remember, I think I remember him making a comment about it. I said, "Hey, that'll be good." He goes, "Sure is dark, And sure enough, we played Cal Allen, and they ran a triangle and two. I remember. And Jeff Wilson had success shooting threes, and I was looking in one of our scrapbooks before we came on, and he scored 16 against New Braunfels here in a district game. He had 4 threes. But that day before that practice was a Monday, and Shane had knocked down a few threes during practice. And I told Coach Ferguson, I said, "I'm going to play Shane tomorrow." And he went, "No, you're not." No, he said, "No, you're not." And then, of course, me at 29 go, "Well, I really am now." And no, we had such a great relationship, Greg and I, and he just kind of went, "No, you're not." And okay. And I mean, we no more get to the, sure enough, they ran that triangle too, and they did a great job. I had athletes on David and Robbie. And so, of course, the perimeters were wide open. And I believe Jeff hit a couple, and then I went, "Okay, Shane, go."
I was like, "Huh?"
Huh?
Even Jose was like, "Huh?" I was like, "I guess."
I guess. And he went out, and sure enough, he knocked one down.
Boom.
And then the biggest surprise I've ever seen of any player in 34 years being a head basketball coach, I'm doing the lineup going into the second half. And I'll never forget, Shane sitting on like a trainer's table. And so he's sitting at the trainer's table. I look at him and say, "Okay, we're going to go with Adamak Shivers Carpenter." And he looked at me like, it's not like he just took it and go, "Well, of course." He looked, and he looked to his right and to his left like, "What are we doing?"
I looked at Dave and I looked at Chris. I said, "I guess I'm going with you."
Yeah. And no, I had not asked for their approval.
No.
And I said, because I knew there was no reason for them to change defenses because it was working. And then finally, the fourth quarter, how we broke their triangle in two is David would get the rebound and just go dribble down and go score.
Yeah.
And just go, "Hey, how'd you finally break it down?" Shivers finally just got the rebound and went down there and shot. Well, there was no setup, remember? They go, "How'd you do it?" I said, "Well, really, David just decided to go get the he got bored with anybody else getting to shoot."
It was funny, we were driving over here and she asked me, she said, "Was David the point guard?" And I said, "Not in the beginning of the game."
That's a great comment. I mean, he didn't start out. And then, of course,
If he didn't like what was going on, though.
Yeah, and then, of course, Austin McCollum was really probably the best team in the region. They're most talented. And we beat them. We got a bye, and then we beat them in area. And I'll always remember Chris was point guard. And then, of course, about the second half, he would run all the way for the middle, grab the ball, and point and tell Chris where to go. And then he would break.
And I went too.
Chris would throw it in, and he'd say, "No, you go down. I'm going to bring it down." He'd tell Chris, "It's my turn now."
So it was. He said, "I've rested enough. Now it's my time." But anyway, so I have great memories of that third round of you and Jeff getting to knock down those shots. So, well, Coach, it's your turn. Kind of talking about what that team means to you, and then of course, Chris came back and his assistant with us, with me, and then of course he had a tremendous run at Harlandale. And then now, I don't guess anybody's hotter than 5A basketball right now than the champion Chargers. So it's coach's turn.
I've got a lot of good memories, like Coach says, about relationships. Appreciate all you guys. We're so connected. Got a lot of good memories. Practices, like Jose was saying. I remember in the off season though, Coach McConaughey and Coach Leach and Coach Spanton, they'd play us in open gym, and y'all's mission in life was to beat us and David in the back gym a lot. Got good memories of morning practices, and if we were really good and worked hard, Coach McConaughey would do some dunks afterward. We'd be, hey, do the double pump reverse, and he'd boom. And I remember you leaving and not saying goodbye. And Coach Leach coming in, and I remember your first game, you started talking to us, and it was a timeout, and you said, okay, I want you to go stand in that corner over there, and Shane, you go stand in that corner, and Dave, I want you to take the ball down the middle and score. And so we did we split up, and we went to half. I'm over there by the scores table saying, hey, this is a pretty good play. I like that. This is good. It worked for about 3 or 4 times.
Yeah.
But just good memories of the freshman team, and it's thinking about all the stuff that's happened since the state tournament with my parents, my son going to school here, and having to listen to my grandpa saying, back in 1990 when Chris did this, what are you gonna do? It's always been there in our family. And it's been such a wonderful blessing, and to get to be a part and be in the same profession as you, Coach, and you kind of taking care of me. I remember I had just graduated from Texas Tech, and I was going to be an assistant coach in Palestine, which is far east Texas, and I was going to be in the woods and be forgotten forever. And Coach calls me, says, hey, Chris, did you take that job yet? I got a great one for you at Hayes High School as assistant basketball coach. And Coach has always looked out for me. He's like my second dad, and taking care of me, and be able to be here and coach now is and to try and build some relationships the way he's done with all of us. But getting back to our senior year, I remember the Alamo Heights and
Robbie
winning here, and that was such a big deal because they were the big bad Goliath. Mm-hmm. And then having to play them in the regional final.
The Rock.
And for some reason they boxed and won, and I'm good friends with the Heights coach now, Charlie Bogus, and we used to run camps, and I would say, hey Coach, thanks for boxing and won us, David, that first quarter, and you didn't get out of it after 3 timeouts, and I wasn't going to shoot the ball. I never shot the ball, so I was like, hey, let's give it to David, let's give it to Chad. But Robbie got hot and hit 4 or 5 threes, and Coach Bogus had called his second timeout, and we're sitting there going, hey, this is pretty good. We're up 15, and Coach gets over there. Hey, nobody talk to Robbie right now. Nobody talk to Robbie. And he's talking to us, and
exactly.
And Robbie's just calmly sitting over there, and he's hit 5 threes in about 3 minutes, and we're up, and David's like, when am I going to get the ball? I hadn't shot the ball yet. I mean, it's like 4 minutes into the game, and I haven't touched it yet. And they came back out, and we're up 26-5 at the end of the first quarter, and then to get out of it, go there straight man-to-man, and David breathed, and then he got to touch the ball, ended up scoring about 30 points, and he was dominant. And but that was kind of the moment for me that I knew that, hey, we are a great basketball team, and being able to beat them, because they were fantastic. I remember my junior year playing against them, and what were they? We played really well. We had a good team with Paul Heffernan and all those guys my junior year. And we played fantastic. We just couldn't beat them. It was our senior year we finally got over the hump. So just tons of good memories. But just reconnecting with you guys, and relationship wise, and Coach having a long relationship with you as well. You're still coaching, and being in the coaching fraternity. It's been a fantastic run, and you guys are connected with all my family. I've told stories, and my mom's told stories, and my grandpa told stories. Every once in a while, having to go sit there, and he'd put in the state semifinal tape, and I don't know how you guys beat these guys. Tell me again how y'all won this game, because every time I put this in, I think that y'all are going to get beat, and for some reason, y'all keep winning that game.
Always win.
So, we're all connected forever. So that's what winning with this team means to me. So, appreciate you guys.
Well, this is special. It's special to have Robbie Shivers and David Shivers with us now. Of course, Shane was talking a while ago about having a reunion without David Shivers and Robbie Shivers is about like having a Bulls reunion without Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen. Well, I was sharing that with Shaq, Chris Adamack, and Chris goes, "No, Coach, that's like not having Jimmy Chitwood at the Hoosiers reunion." And I said, I think we'll go with that. Well, guys, it's special that y'all are here, and it means a lot to us, and that's absolutely true. There's no reunion or no story about 1990 without you two, without 33 and 22. And so we just want to kind of talk about just like we did with the guys earlier. Just talk about your memories of that, why that year was special, and then why that team is special. And I'm going to start with Rob, and then let Rob kind of talk, and we'll just have a conversation, and we'll interrupt each other just like we always do, and then we'll finish up with Dave before we go joining the rest of the guys.
Well, it is nice to be here, and I think the biggest thing was there was almost no expectation. What made that so fun, and as I coached myself for 21 seasons, it was so interesting that we went into that year. I know, Paul Heffernan had just, graduated, and so, there really wasn't like a second scorer. I mean, everybody knew Dave could score points.
We were preseason sixth place. We were picked preseason sixth in our district.
Yep.
Yeah, sixth in the district. So very low expectation, which even probably made it more enjoyable. But I think a lot of it was, that was Dave's class and all, the guys like Shane and Chris, of course, they were always at our house, and then I knew them. To tell you the truth, I really was kind of shy as a younger kid and really didn't talk to many of them that much. I mean, I got to know them really as an adult a lot better. But I just enjoyed playing basketball. I was just kind of happy to be on the team. And I had a small injury like at the very first of that season. I had hurt my ankle, and so it kind of took a while to get going. There was actually, we talked about some guys that were kind of in the season and didn't quite finish the season. There was an athletic kid named Sean Foster that was playing in front of me. And then, I don't even remember, you would know, but I don't remember exactly what happened, but then he wasn't anymore. And then he really wasn't on the team. But so I just got to play more minutes. But again, I was just enjoying playing the whole year. I mean, the one thing I remember from my side is, I enjoyed playing with Dave. I got a chance to play with him another year when we were in college. We played at Concordia for a year together. And, of course, I enjoyed it a lot more the second time because, I had kind of gotten a chance to do it before. And it was a neat year in terms of winning. But I think for me, it was neat. There's this kind of persona with the Shivers brothers kind of thing, excuse me, that kind of carried over for many years, especially being in coaching. A lot of guys that were at that state tournament game that talked about Port Arthur Lincoln with their 5 state championships, and just the dominance they had during the 80s, and to come back and beat them in that semifinal game, it was the same thing. I mean, all the way. When you would put, we're going to the party, it literally felt like a party. Like I personally never felt pressure in any of those games. There was never pressure to perform, never had a pressure to score many points. I mean, Dave, of course, would score a lot of points. And we were talking on the way here, and I was just talking to him about how, in coaching, I would build a team and having what I would call tough kids, just tough guys. And, there was a guy named Jose Escade, and I think people like that some people don't remember, but just had a toughness about him, you know, and Chad Chase. I mean, we're talking about me and Chad when the back gym up here, we used to be freestanding. You could rip the door open. Well, I couldn't rip the door open because I probably benched about 105 pounds.
Yeah.
But once Chad got in his car accident and wasn't playing football anymore, all fall, me and Chad would go back to that gym every day after school, and he would rip that door open, and we would shoot and play one-on-one, and we'd shoot and play one-on-one. And it was amazing how this just great athlete just became a good basketball player. And then, you know, you had Seth Russell, and then you had Chris basically Adamak had to scrap his entire life. I mean, everything he did, he was scrapping, you know, and even
barely, like junior high. I mean, seventh grade C team.
Seventh grade
C.
C.
Token when we gave Adamak a jersey.
If there wouldn't have been 7 guys on that freshman team, there would have been things like nowadays in Boerne where there's cuts and there's, I mean, those guys would have never been on the team.
Nope.
And so that process just, again, I didn't appreciate it at that age, but now looking back, it's amazing to me. You know, even, I mean, I've played Chris's team 3 or 4 times at different schools we've been coaching at, and his teams play like that, you know, and then it's the same thing. I mean, Seth, I mean, Carl Donges, I mean, Carl just could lock in. What I always just loved about that guy is he would get this one player, and whether it was the Cal Allen game and their big guy, whether it was our district and it was Crane Canavan, he would put his name on his locker, and he just had this oneness of focus that this guy that's scoring on everybody else is not going to score on me.
Yep.
You know, and it perpetuated itself. And, you know, there's so many guys like that. We were just having this conversation before we went on here about roles. But there's so many guys that fulfilled these incredible roles. And really roles like a guy like Seth Russell, I don't know what the octopus was designed around. I think the history of it would be interesting. But he had a perfect position in that offense. A guy that moved the ball, a guy that played hard defense, a guy that wasn't going to shoot a bunch of shots. And the ball got to high percentage people to shoot the ball. You know, it wasn't like I will watch games today and see a kid. I was watching the end of Texas Tech game and a guy kept shooting the ball and missing at the end. And I'm thinking he's open because he can't make a shot.
He's open because he's not any good.
And yet he kept shooting.
That's right.
And I'm thinking on our team, you didn't do that. I mean, my best friend in high school, when we were seniors, would be told very directly, Daryl, do not shoot the ball. Right. And this guy would tell me until he's in his mid-20s. I couldn't be in a rec league without thinking, don't shoot the ball. You know, and so guys had to embrace all these roles. But it was, for me, you know, like I said, it was just so enjoyable. Just when I look back, especially, of all the things I probably took for granted, that I was just kind of enjoying the ride. And I thought, you know, first year on varsity, we'd probably do this for 2 more years.
Oh, I know.
And you don't realize how few and far between those opportunities are with so many things that have to go right, and games you could have, the end of the curve, I mean, games you could have easily lost that you won. So guys that get in foul trouble in the first round, Dre gets in foul trouble. I mean, there's a lot of small things. But anyway, that's probably my start.
Well, before we go to Dave, you know, we've got lots of great Robbie moments, and we talked about them before. You know, the Kerrville game here, the last game of your senior year at home, you foul out. Mm-hmm. And Robbie really does take over.
No, I was telling you a moment ago, I'm sitting on the bench thinking my career's over. We're done.
And Robbie took over because I knew we were going to have another game, but I did not want to play Clemens again. I was more scared of Clemens than probably Port Arthur Lincoln. They were really good. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, the game with Alamo Heights in the regional finals, you know, Coach Bogus had talked to Brady Gage, the head basketball coach at Kerrville, because remember they upset us or beat us in Kerrville in that old gym because they boxed and won us, and Robbie didn't have a real good game that night. So, you know, sometimes people take too much out of, he's a sophomore, you get him in a big game, he won't knock down his shots. And the greatest, it couldn't have worked out any perfect, because if we don't lose that game and that doesn't work, he may have played it straight up. We may could still beat him, but it sure did help. Rob hitting his first 5 shots. And
in that season finale against Kerrville, where he bailed us out and basically carried us to that win.
That got him his confidence.
Prepped him, because he was building throughout the season in that regional final. I mean, gosh, anybody can score when nobody's guarding you.
Well, it was nice in that Kerrville game to just have the ball. it was always nice to have the ball. Like in the Braunfels Canyon game where Dave didn't start, I got the ball a lot. So I scored a lot in that game. I scored 16 in the first quarter just because I had the ball. And then once he fouled out, of course, he couldn't get the ball. So then I had the ball again. So it was definitely, there was definitely an inverse relationship between those two.
Ball security, or availability.
Adam liked to look over him, like when Dave would be doing the, hey, I can't get the ball. He'd look over and be like, okay.
Well, then, of course, Chad, you telling about y'all working out together every day after school. And, we talked earlier that Chad, when he got to go in and handle the ball because you got your fourth foul at the Port Arthur Lincoln game, he went, this is my chance. I've been waiting for this. And he was a
awesome.
Man possessed.
It's unbelievable. Still the baseline jumper that goes over the corner of the backboard.
I still remember that.
Like it's unbelievable. And he would get offensive rebounds. He just did so many things. Yeah.
But
he played so good that game.
Well, Dave, your turn. Talk about just same thing, some favorite memories, and then I want to talk about just the team and what it meant, and then we're going to go join those other guys.
Yeah, it meant a lot. We're sitting here 30 plus years later, and I've got just all these feelings, all these emotions of gratitude and thanks. And Rob said it really well. The only stuff that I would add to that, just the toughness. I watch teams play today, and they're on this AAU circuit. And I think what made us so different is that high school coaches today have to take those kids out of those select programs and then integrate them into a team. Well, we had the advantage of, me and Rob were really the only ones that played on anything in the summers outside of just the typical, athletic sport rotation that everybody would play in a small town. So you did a phenomenal job of defining all those roles, and I just think that was extraordinary. We had a great point guard in Adamak who was gritty, who was tough. He didn't take any junk from anybody. He'd stick his nose in. He'd dive on the ball. You got a very athletic shooting guard in Seth Russell who would only shoot if he was really open, and he was so heady and just had a great basketball IQ, and he was a good defender. And then Rob and I just kind of playing our game, and then a big guy like Chad Chase, who kind of like a Greyhound version of Eddie Nahara. He just did everything. he set screens, he rebounded, he would knock down open shots if he was open. And so you did such a great job of defining all the roles. I love what Rob said a moment ago about Carl Donges, that he, really good defender, would have the singular, and he would rebound if we needed a big rebound. Shane coming in and knocking down open shots if there were opportunities. Jose was so athletic. Greg Wright gave us great minutes in practice, long, lanky, athletic guy that was fun to go up against. And it was a great experience, incredible memory. Very thankful, but there were some key turning points in that season.
Yeah, there were, Dave.
Rob set the bar, is right. There wasn't a lot of expectation going in. We had to surprise and shock some people. We didn't know what we had. A lot of our guys off that 89 team were gone.
Right.
Adamak didn't play a lot. I'm just trying to even think right now who was coming back that even played any significant minutes.
Just you. And so we were putting it together, and it took us a while because there's like we've mentioned a few people that were part of that team at the beginning that didn't end up with us. And so that was something we went through. And then, of course, we like talking about Poteet.
I think Rob and I need to chime in on that whole Poteet thing.
Yeah, I think you may.
You go ahead and kick it off, Rob.
Well,
what do you mean about? What do you remember about the Strawberry Festival?
Yeah, in hindsight, our non-district schedule, though seemingly difficult and challenging, might not have been so challenging if we had been playing better as a team earlier in the year.
That's right.
And so when you look back, you realize the biggest thing is it kind of allowed other people to kind of say what they were thinking. And in any organization, the dynamic of any organization, any team, each team functions in its own way communication-wise. And if you can't have open communication, there's going to be these little friction that kind of pop up. And some of the guys that actually ended up not playing, you know, some of those people off to the side kind of actually probably opened up more people to say things that needed to. But all I remember is the game was over, and I was just trying to leave the locker room. It was normal. I very rarely got into the social dynamic of such an incredible team. But I remember Dave was taking a shower, and the next thing I know, his trophy is thrown down in the shower. I think somebody said maybe somebody thought it was a trash can. I think it was actually in the shower itself. And Chad was in there, and Chad and Dave will probably admit this. Dave was probably not a fighter, more of a lover, but Chad could have whooped him in a second.
Oh.
And so everybody was always a little scared of Chad because Chad is an incredibly nice human being. Now, I know him well as an adult, but he had a little edge to him back then.
Yeah.
And
he had more muscle than anybody in the whole school.
You were kind of worried about not only the fact that any moment he could knock you out in the shower.
Yes.
So when Chad picked that trophy up and basically in no uncertain words said, "You don't deserve this because you don't respect this. And you don't respect what this means and how great of an honor this is to be this. But the problem with you is you don't understand how just it should be to be the leader of a team and to lead." And really from then on, it started just an open communication and may or may not have led to a trip, an Adamax Bronco.
It was that same night.
Blue Bonnet Palace, yeah, late night.
The shower confrontation between me and Chad led to the back of the bus because it was a long way from Poteet back to Boerne.
Team building.
And we all got together, and we weren't best friends. We fought, we scrapped, and God really did something. And I know now, 30 years later, I didn't recognize it or appreciate it in the moment. But like Rob said, from a communication and from a team bonding and we became kind of a unit that night. And everything that we talk about in moments like this, when we talk about the relationships and the friendships and the shared life experience, it started that night. We were not a team before we went down there, and I think we were around 11-4, and I think we went on about a 9 or 10 game winning streak because I remember we got to like 20-4 and we got ranked in the little San Antonio sub 5A rankings, and then I started thinking, man, we got this. We're on it, and then we had a few bumps here in district, but we did end up in Shaq's Bronco, headed to some Billy Bob's for some dancing and just some fun time as a team. And I deserved it. What Chad said, I deserved it. I was so arrogant, so full of myself, and there were some tough doses of humility pills that I had to swallow there and say, I can't get to the state championship by myself. We needed a team, and you had been preaching that the whole time, but I wasn't wanting to hear it. It was kind of just falling on deaf ears, but it was a game changer, definitely a transformative moment in that season.
And then, of course, the 4 overtime at Clemens, where we, remember we just kept needing to clinch it. And we wanted it to be over so we could say we clinched playoff spot because only 2 win. And if we win at Clemens in that overtime game, we clinch it. But that wouldn't have, we didn't need to feel good about ourselves. No. I think that team needed to constantly, be on the edge and constantly overcome. But that 4 overtime, that was huge. And we lost. Yeah. I think Shaq turned it over. I think basically did a bounce pass
across half court.
I was
telling Dave, I was like, because Dave was shooting a free throw and would have iced it. And when he missed, Shaq got the long rebound, and he was trying to throw it across the court to me. Anyway, not to get down on Shaq for that.
What's his name? Rob Miller went and
dunked. I think, and some of those.
Gym went so
crazy.
Loud.
That's when they were packed.
Barely hear myself think.
Well, and that's what but I think all the teams, because then when you fast forward and look at some games down the stretch where Seth makes 2 big free throws, where we take care of the ball better, where, all those things in that season, the losses early especially, but then that one in district, I think really, gave us that idea that we got to finish games better, and so I think we were learning things even as the season went.
Yeah, my recollection of that game at Clemens, the Clemens Buffaloes, I remember that pass and them picking it off and going down and dunking it. And I remember thinking, there's no way we're going to lose this. I just kept thinking, we're going to win this game. And so I was really shell-shocked on the bus going back. And I don't know if I really even came out of that game at all. So,
No.
I mean, it was
No.
8 quarters of basketball. And I remember being on the bus and having to lay across because my legs started
Oh, we were so
spasming. And I was probably dehydrated. And then Seth Russell spent the night with me that night. And I remember the next morning, you know this, we're in back there in my bedroom. My dad, Seth and I are laying there just dead, tired, asleep. And my dad comes in, Big Mike Shivers, the godfather of Boerne basketball, and just starts shaking us and saying, hey, heart of a champion, boys, heart of a champion. This is what the Lord wanted. This is the test. This is going to make us better. And I remember just saying, shut up. We're trying to get some rest here.
Yep.
But Seth and I still, to this day, heart of a champion.
Heart of
It's not-
champion. And rub the rock.
Yeah.
Rub the rock.
You got to have the rock. It was an overcoming adversity, though, for sure. That was a difficult loss.
Well, I want to talk about the relationships now before we go join the guys. And so just talk about the relationships because, winning and being on special teams helps give a team some glue. That if you're on a team that maybe gets beat in the second round, you don't have the opportunities to stay connected. We got back together, I believe, I know we did in 08, and then we did at our Hall of Honor induction in 13, and then, of course, again in 17 when we inducted both of y'all. But, of course, we've always had a relationship that never ended. Rob was assistant coach here and went on to have just a tremendous coaching career, and I learned a lot from Rob. And then, of course, wasn't for Dave, no way I'd still be sitting here 35 years later. And so I just want to make sure I let you both know that I love you and appreciate you. And if it wasn't for y'all, I don't know what I'd be doing, but thank you. But I want y'all to talk about relationships and just kind of segue into that for a little while, and then we'll go see the guys.
Well, I think if all things work for a purpose, a greater purpose, and the fact that everybody kind of comes to this place together, but with no real true history in terms of just basketball in general. Like if you look back, I remember when I came and coached here, we had that T-shirt you had got from the Lady of Victoria. It said, it's not magic, and then it said, but it's close.
That's
good.
Good.
And that concept, and that was probably in 1997, 1998, so 7-8 years later. Ironically, the jersey was 33. But I always thought,
You're welcome.
maybe it should have been 22. But
Yeah,
anyway, that always is when we talk about all the relationships, and I was younger on that team, and I still, of course, have been around Chris for a long time just because we've both been in coaching in different areas. But I think, Carl Donges and his dad, when I'm coaching in Lampasas, 25 years later, would come to my games against Taylor and my games against Liberty Hill just because they're in the area and it was just important to them.
Right.
And I think with all of us, that's kind of it's easy to get caught up in our own lives and with our own kids and with what's going on right around us. But we always kind of have this bigger picture. And like you said, if you lose in the first round, the second round, probably nobody talks about it. I mean, granted, like I sent a text back to Dave saying it's not like we won a state championship. It's not.
But we did for us.
But we did for this place because it was the epicenter. I mean, I know as a coach, we're always as good as our players. I mean, whatever saying you want to use. It's not about the X and O's, it's the Jimmies and Joes. Whatever you want to say. But, I think the idea was the way you treated all of us and the way I've seen you treat people over the years to know, I've said this before, but every freshman B team coach's first name and probably even his wife's name whenever we would go play somebody, I think all of us felt that too. Because one thing, like when I think about teams I've coached, a lot of times my guy never gets in the game is bitter. Our greatest character and greatest personality on that team was Shane. And it wasn't because he was getting playing time, he was doing this or that. He was just a great person, but also because you treated him like he was just as important as Dave was. There was no separation. It wasn't transactional. It was always transformational. And that's one thing, and I know that's off a book by John Ehrman, but that's really it, is that being this transformational leader, you allow all of us to be transformational fathers, transformational figures in our communities, a transformational pastor, transformational coaches. And when I look at all those other men too, I see the same thing. I see people that are trying to, transform the relationships around them and bring light and not just care about themselves and care about their own world. But all that started on that team was the way we played the game. I mean, Seth Russell didn't need to shoot. Carl Don just didn't need to shoot. I mean, it was amazing how
unselfish and sacrificial.
They wouldn't even look. I mean, we could literally run. Our delay game was octopus, and we could run it for literally 2 or 3 minutes, and we would never. People would never try to shoot.
Teams don't ever do that anymore.
No. But it's because those relationships. It was an unselfish culture that was generated that also appreciated everybody for who they were, and not for literally what they were doing every moment. So for me, it's been incredible. I mean, it definitely was. I mean, everything just not only playing for you, but then also coaching here with you. I mean, it's the way I learned to treat people and treat, high school kids. That word coach is that conveyance from young person, young teen to young adult. And literally showing people those qualities is what I learned here. So I'm obviously thankful as well.
Thank you, Rob.
Yeah, thanks for your encouragement. I think Rob said it so well. I don't know what else I could really add other than you modeled that. I mean, you're a coach, but number one, you're a follower of Jesus Christ. And so you live your life in a manner that exalts Jesus, but it honors people. And you care about people. And I think you were one of we had an incredible mom and dad that loved us sacrificially, unselfishly. Our mom's in heaven right now. She's smiling because of the impact that you made on us. And man, I look around this gym, and even just walking in there, I can see my mom, my dad, and just so many different places and great moments that God gave me here. But when you talk about relationships, the way you, like Rob said, set the tone for our whole team. You loved and served your team, and that's what Jesus came to do. The kingdom of God, life is built on relationships. The kingdom of God is advanced through relationships. It's all about people at the end of the day. Eternity is long. We got a soul inside of us that's going to last forever. This life is short, and it's finite. And I love sitting here and reminiscing and thinking about the way God used those relationships at a very special time in my life as a young man. And I remember we haven't talked really about the state tournament games, but even that state semifinal game, when I had 4 fouls in the second quarter, I felt so good. I felt like the basket was so big, and I never thought we were going to lose. And even sitting there on the bench the whole time, Chad Chase started playing out of his mind. Robbie's over here going crazy, getting all state tournament, and they carried us through. I get back in there in the fourth quarter. We got this lead. Yeah, rested. We're tied at one point. I see Carl Don just down there all by himself in the basket, and I'm inbound the ball, and I had a split second, like, should I throw this or should I not? Because we all kind of laughed a time or two. Carl didn't have the best hands. And then when I threw it to him, he caught it. I'm thinking, don't try to dunk this, Carl. Just lay the ball in. We need these 2 points really bad.
And he did.
Caught it perfectly, stepped right into it. We made it. Seth Russell made some big layups and free throws in overtime. And gosh, it was just amazing. I'm just so thankful and grateful, and this team and this town has meant so much to me over the years. So it's an honor for me to give back to the game and to be here today to share just some memories of what God did 30 years ago. It's phenomenal. So thank you.
You bet. Well,
for doing this.
You mean a lot to me, and of course, just like Rob said, the Shivers name, and of course, at the perfect time, and people do remember. And I go, the Canavans and the Shivers, part of our history, and we're real proud of our history. And we're proud that we're about to put 2 more banners up here pretty soon, because, that's the deal that we all know. You want to, dig wells that you're not going to get to drink from, and plant trees you're not going to enjoy the shade. But anyway, hey, Let's go join the other guys. We're going to come see you right now, guys. Let's go. I just want to tell you thank you so much for being here. Chris, thank you for, getting with everybody. And there's a few that weren't able to come that we do have to mention. Seth Russell, who, the big turning point besides Chad at Pleasanton, we changed our lineup, and Seth became a starter here at the Lockhart game, and then that was another turning point or tipping point that we never looked back. Chris Vircher was on the part of the team in 90, and then of course he was a starter with Carl and Greg in 91, and so those are people that are very important. We need to mention always Roy Brown.
Downtown
Brown passed away, and then of course his daughter Grace was a trainer, and then Jeff Wilson has done well. Jeff was very good on our team. Not like I said, the New Braunfels game, and then he had 2 threes in the Pleasanton game. And then his junior year, and then his senior year, we were 29-4 with he and Robbie and Nathan Dress. And he's gone on to be the professor dumpster and has done a tremendous job with his career in building places for the homeless, and it's much more than that. But I appreciate you being here. But it was awesome year in 1990, 30 years ago. Can you imagine? But as I close, it's all that matters is relationships. But what's neat about great teams is they give you a reason to be able to get back together that normally maybe you wouldn't. But I challenge each and every one of you to not wait till tragedy, and that was something that happened about a month ago with Ray. Whoever you have in your life, the only thing that matters is relationships. And Bruce, thank you, love you, appreciate it. There's not a better friend that stays in touch with people than you. Nobody better. And Greg, I'm proud of you. And of course, I still see that Mustang driving through, and it's everybody that's a Boerne guy smiles at the thought of your mother, and of course, then I'm so proud of you and how well you've done. And Chad, not a better father, and just how you've done. And how you did it. We were all part of each other. Of course, I'll be forever grateful for you guys, because 30 years later, I'm still here. And this is my home, and I love this place. But if it wasn't for 90, I'd probably be somewhere else. And so y'all had a lot to do with that. But Chad, you've done a great job in your career. And then, of course, your boys are just awesome, and they're in Blanco, and thank goodness for Facebook. I always know what's going on. And then of course Chris is in his 3rd year as a head coach at Champion, and we got a chance to do some pretty special things here. We've got 4 real good basketball teams, but the tipping point was 1990, and anybody that knows anything about Boerne knows that. And then Carl, of course, I mentioned, your brother, and then of course your dad means so much to me. He was the superintendent in 1990, and a lot of the things we do with athletics, the foundation was set with Joe, and he continues. I see him all the time, but like we said, at funerals and and then of course at Hall of Honor and Distinguished Alumni. And but your role in 1990 means a lot, and then just what you've done professionally, and then of course just means a lot to me too. But 90 connects us all. And Jose, you never would. You kept coming. I remember you were at the 95. I guess it was 94 game when we lost to Waco University, and I remember you were at that game, and
Biggest
you
fans,
always connected and continue to do those games. But you know, I'm going to end with you, Shane, because you said it. We, no matter how far we get away from each other, always answer that phone, always text back, and when it's you know, whether someone calls you back immediately or not, keep calling them till they call you, and because all of us have different things going on in our lives at different times. That we don't really realize what someone's going through, but always be there for each other. But you nailed it, and I'm gonna close on that. The only thing that matters is relationships, relationships, relationships. Everything else, just stuff. Thank y'all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Coach.